effective?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the President Biden and his administration, right? Whether or not now remember, these two islands and the islands along the coast of China were never covered by the mutual defense treaty that the U.S. had with Taiwan. It only included the main island of Formosa, as Matt said, and Penghu, the large island that's uh, you know, not too far away from the main island. So these islands were never part of any kind of agreement that we envisioned that we would protect. Now, obviously, the U.S. could try to intervene, and that's part of the interesting story that I want to mention. Is normally when okay, so why the middle of August, right? So in the middle of August, the Vice President Lai is going to go to Paraguay to attend the inauguration of a new president there. And on his way there and on his way back, he's going to stop in the United States. We all know what happens when a senior leader from Taiwan stops in the United States. The CCP gets the PLA to go crazy and do something. And so typically what happens is the US, for some reason, has a lot of aircraft carriers and other kinds of helicopter landing carriers nearby. And if you look at the past event, and I'll send you the slides of this, but the in August of last year, when Pelosi came to visit Taiwan, there were 4 or 5 flat tops in the area of Taiwan. In April of this year, when Tsai met with McCarthy in California, there were 4 what we call flat tops in the Navy, basically either aircraft or helicopter carriers. However, right now, there are none near Taiwan, and the closest ones are currently off the coast of Australia participating in Talisman's Sabre. And so the exercise is supposed to end today. Now, the question is the U.S. going to send those two, the America and the Reagan and their battle group with them quickly up to Taiwan? Will they make it, let's say, within 10 to 14 days? They might, but I don't know for sure. But right now, there are no large U.S. Navy ships in the area. The other thing, the other indicator is, as I started looking at the patterns of the flight that were flying around Taiwan, and if you look at some of these patterns, there's one graphic from Jane's that shows from March of 2022 to March of this year, all the aircraft that have flown around Taiwan, the PLA aircraft. And you can see very clearly that these aircraft typically always separate Taiwan from Pratas. That's clear. And there have been a lot of commentators who've talked about the possibility that the PLA would take Pratas. I'm not saying anything new, at least from a Taiwan point of view. But what I am saying new is there's a motivation now for the PLA to do something. That's the difference.
So this is kind of giving me like kind of, I guess, Putin's special military operations in Crimea vibes. Is that what you're essentially saying?
Yes, yes. So here's some more details. Okay, on the 18th of August, President Biden is going to meet Prime Minister Kishida and President Yoon of South Korea in Washington, D.C. That's pretty close to all this crazy stuff that's happening. Okay, that's kind of unique. A lot of other military indicators. There's aircraft that normally don't fly a whole lot that suddenly were flying in June and July that I find very interesting. Just for example, the Y9CC, which is a command and control aircraft, flew 1 or 2 times in last year, but then suddenly in July flew 4 times. Another aircraft, the Y20, which is an air refueler, typically would only fly once a month for a couple of months in the last year, but suddenly in April and in June flew twice. So again, it's just kind of strange that there's an increase going on. And now it could be increasing and past this August date and mean nothing. but there's just so many indicators that I can't seem to see anything else that makes sense.
Well, I want to get to, because you'd asked an earlier question about like if the PLA takes one of these outlying islands with just a military base on it, and then they try to renegotiate, as you said, like, is that really going to be helpful to them? And how? Like, how would Taiwan and the U.S. respond to that?
Okay, helpful for China first. Is that what you want me to answer? Okay.
Because like now they've like, okay, like we have invaded a Taiwan controlled island.
So well, like I mean, look at what Putin did with like Georgia and Crimea, right?
So right, and but what we saw is that so Putin invaded Crimea, and the U.S. did essentially nothing. Certainly not militarily, right? And then what happened only 8 years later is Russia felt emboldened to invade all of Ukraine. So if you look at that 8-year pattern, then, letting China invade a small Taiwan island and letting them, get away with it is going to embolden them to maybe within a decade take the main island.
Well, I mean, that's my question. Is this what Xi Jinping is banking on, essentially? That this is a little test and the U.S. will do nothing?
Well, I mean, that's the question that, the Biden administration will have to answer if and when this occurs. And, considering I don't have a high opinion of Secretary Blinken and his attempts to, really, kowtow to the CCP in his meetings, I'm not so sure that he's going to, he's going to probably push back on any kind of real military reaction. Now, don't forget.
But that's not his job. He's State Department. His job is to talk with people.
Yes, but don't forget his job is to also influence Biden, and also to have a vote in deciding a military action. He's part of the decision-making process because he has to sell the action, and he has to also be convinced. And don't forget the Secretary of Defense, is not exactly a strong leader in the scheme of things. He'll pretty much do whatever President Biden wants him to do. I think that the expectation from China is that the U.S. will try to do some kind of sanctions, but don't forget the U.S. is currently conducting sanctions against Russia, Iran, and the amount of sanctions. If we start doing sanctions against China, we're going to have a big problem because we haven't decoupled yet, and so it's going to hurt us just as much as it's going to hurt them. So I'm not sure that we're going to do anything in either the military or the economic arena.
Well, on that point, just real quick, China's economy right now is doing particularly bad, especially after in June, the National Bureau of Statistics released a bunch of economic data that, even the CCP is admitting things are not as good as they said they were going to be. So it's obviously much worse than they say things are. Aren't they taking a big risk economically by doing something like this, that they could be hit with some kind of sanctions that would be very devastating to the rule?
And just to add fire to your argument, the unemployment rate of youth, is people talk about 20 plus percent, but in actuality, it's more like 40%. That's the statistic I heard. So my argument would be that this is a good distraction to all the disappointed people out there in China, and it will definitely help the nationalists, the strong nationalists in China, beat the be happy that Xi Jinping has done something. So I'm in regards to the issue of the economy. If you remember that there's a list of core interests that China has, and those core interests are like territorial integrity, maintaining current rule by the Communist Party, get Taiwan, et cetera, and you get to number 6 on the list it's the economy. So we have to remember that the economy to us is more important than the economy is to the CCP.
Well, unless the economy threatens the number two about keeping the Communist Party in power.
True, but I think that they're pretty stable in terms of their economy with the rogue states. They've got good business going on with Russia, Iran, and they just made some deals with Saudi Arabia and a bunch of other countries, and they have this Belt and Road thing going on. So I don't, it's a possibility. I'm not denying that it's definitely a possibility, but I would argue that it could be a good distraction for at least a short period of time.